She had rehearsed her speech for weeks. Dressed in her finest, name proudly listed on the event banner. But when she arrived early, someone looked her up and down and pointed to a spill on the floor. "Can you clean that up before the guests arrive?" they asked, without a second thought. She wasn't holding a mop. She was holding a message meant to move a room full of leaders. What happened next would silence the assumptions and reveal a truth this audience never saw coming. Because she wasn't there to clean up, she was there to wake them up. She had always known that walking into certain rooms meant carrying more than just her qualifications. Her name was Dr. Imani Carter, Ph.D. in social policy, Harvard alum, and one of the youngest voices invited to speak at the National Leadership Conference on Equity and Reform. The invitation wasn't a favor. It was earned through decades of community work, late nights, published papers, and voices she helped amplify. On that crisp Saturday morning, Imani arrived early to the hotel lounge where the keynote session would be held. She wanted to take it all in, breathe, rehearse in peace. The staff bustled around, prepping the space. She smiled and greeted them politely, slipping into the quiet before the room filled. That's when it happened. A hotel supervisor, clipboard in hand, approached her. Without even making eye contact, he gestured toward the far side of the room. "There's a spill by the window," he said flatly. "Clean it before the guests start arriving." Imani blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. But he didn't wait for a reply. He walked off, clearly assuming she worked for housekeeping. There was no name badge on her blouse. No mop in her hand. Just a calm presence, a confident walk, and skin that, apparently, told a different story to the wrong eyes.
If you believe in justice, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that matters.
She stood still, heart racing, not in anger, but in something deeper. That familiar ache of being unseen. Of being reduced to a role never assigned to you, all because of what you look like. What she didn't know yet was that this moment would not just shape her speech, but ignite something far bigger than applause. Imani didn't react, not at first. She had learned, long ago, that reacting too quickly often confirmed people's worst assumptions. So she stood there, silent, absorbing the moment like she had so many times before. She took a deep breath and walked slowly toward the lounge window, not to clean, but to observe. The spill was real, but she wasn't holding a towel. Instead, she opened her leather folder and began quietly reviewing her speech. Her voice, her message, her purpose, that was her focus. Not the man who had reduced her to a stereotype without a second glance. But as she stood there, she felt eyes watching. A woman from the conference team, someone she hadn't met yet, entered the room. Her eyes flicked from Imani to the folder in her hands, and recognition sparked. "Oh, Dr. Carter. We weren't expecting you so early. Let me take you to the green room." The supervisor, hearing this, turned around slowly. His eyes narrowed in confusion, and then widened with realization. That's when it hit him. Imani smiled gently but said nothing. The woman guided her past the man who had just ordered her to clean, his face pale, his authority suddenly hollow. In the green room, Imani sat alone for a few moments, heart still steady. She wasn't angry, not visibly, but something inside her had shifted. She thought about rewriting her speech. Adding the story. Calling it out. But then she remembered who she was. She didn't need to prove anything. The truth was already powerful enough. Her presence would do the rest. Back in the ballroom, the room had filled. Leaders, CEOs, government officials, all seated, all unaware of what had just taken place. The lights dimmed, and her name was announced. "Please welcome to the stage, our keynote speaker, Dr. Imani Carter." She walked out calmly, heels clicking against the polished floor, folder in hand. From the side of the stage, she could see him, the supervisor, standing by the door, frozen in place. And that's when she saw it. He wasn't just embarrassed. He was afraid. Afraid that everyone would know. Afraid of what came next. But Imani wasn't interested in revenge. She had something much more powerful in mind. her voice. She stood at the podium, hands steady, gaze sweeping across the room. The microphone hummed as she leaned in slightly, her voice calm but unmistakably powerful. "I was excited to speak here today," she began, "not just because of the opportunity, but because of what this gathering stands for: equity, inclusion, and progress." The audience nodded, some already scribbling notes. But then, she paused. "This morning," she continued, "before many of you arrived, someone in this very room asked me to clean up a spill in the lounge." A quiet gasp rippled through the crowd. They didn't ask my name. They didn't ask why I was here. They saw my skin, my gender, my presence, and decided I didn't belong at the microphone. Only with a mop. Silence fell like a weight. No one moved. The supervisor by the wall took a step back, color draining from his face. "But I didn't come here to shame anyone," she said, voice unwavering. "I came here to speak. And perhaps, to open a few eyes." Every head was turned toward her now, not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. Shame. Reflection. Shock. Imani held their gaze. You see, bias doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers in everyday moments, through assumptions, misjudgments, and silence. Then she smiled, calm, controlled, but charged with purpose. "But here's the truth, I do clean. I clean systems. I clean misconceptions. I clean the space for voices that were never meant to fit neatly into your expectations." And in that moment, no one could look away. She wasn't just speaking, she was dismantling the room's quiet complicity, piece by piece. No outrage. No revenge. Just truth, sharpened by grace. And the man who once pointed to a spill, now stood in a puddle of his own discomfort. When her speech ended, the room didn't erupt into applause immediately. There was a pause, a long, heavy silence, where every person in that ballroom sat with the weight of what had just been said. Then, slowly, hands began to clap. And then faster. Louder. Until the entire hall stood to its feet. It wasn't just admiration. It was awakening. The man who had mistaken her for staff didn't approach her. He didn't apologize. He quietly disappeared before the next speaker took the stage. But he had heard her. And so had everyone else. Later that day, organizers offered a formal apology. The moment was acknowledged on stage. But Imani didn't dwell on it. She knew the moment had already done its work. It wasn't about a single insult or a single man. It was about how many times it had happened, to her, to others, unseen, unspoken, accepted. And now, someone had finally spoken it, out loud, on record, in a room that mattered. That night, her inbox filled with messages, young black women, aspiring leaders, strangers who saw themselves in her story. They thanked her not just for the speech, but for being what the world kept saying they couldn't be, poised, powerful, and unapologetically present. Because that's what this was really about. Not cleaning up a spill, but clearing space for truth. And the next time someone like Imani walks into a room, just maybe, they won't be asked to clean the floor. They'll be asked to take the stage. How many more stories like this will it take before the world truly changes?